Welcome to episode 5 of In Conversation with Unscattered News, Unscattered TV. Today I'm joined by an incredible gentleman, Valentino Chigwedere. He's the founder and chairman of Chigwedere Petroleum and Energy Corporation. Valentino is an advanced financial markets postgrad candidate at the University of Johannesburg. He's also a student member of CISI, Chartered Institute of Securities and Investment in the UK. And he has gone to be part of the Mining Indaba Young Leaders Program as a under 30 young business leader. Yeah. That's a handful, or rather a mouthful. Thank you so much, though, for joining us. And I think it's quite interesting to have a conversation with you, really, because the industry that you're in is so ununderstood. It's not understood to the length I think we should understand it, and yet week in, week out, we're complaining. Petrol prices are so high, energy prices are so high. Yeah. So I'm really hoping that we'll be able to dissect your industry and really just also talk about you as an individual and what it takes to really be within the industry and some of your decisions in your life path. But outside of that, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. It is a privilege to, being interviewed by a young person, by you, doing strides and, in the industry, and, having organic conversations. I think it's been a long time coming. So I think let's try and make it as organic, even technical as well. But yeah. Thank you.
No, of course. No, we need to get technical because I think we need answers as to why Eskom is now playing. But before that, I'm really I'd love to have a conversation where people actually have an understanding of all the events that have, transpired up until this present moment in time.
Sure.
So tell us a bit about yourself in terms of where you're from.
Yeah.
I understand that you're Shona, right? Yeah. So tell us a bit about that and how that has shaped you.
Yeah, no, technically, I was born in South Africa, by the way, so I'm South African by citizenship,
sure.
By birth, purely South African. But yeah, my dad is Shona, and, we have ancestral roots to Zim.
Yeah.
So I grew up here in South Africa. He died when I was young, and I grew up with a single mom, right? And it wasn't always the best situation at home, but she tried to do what she needed for her kids. And I guess eventually, her foundations, that she taught me in growing up has shaped the man that I am.
Sure.
So yeah, I grew up here in Johannesburg, in the city of Johannesburg, and went to school here, went to high school here, where I was both, a head boy.
Yeah, we had a conversation about this to say, look, head boys meet,
Exactly,
I don't know, it's a head boy club, we need to find more head boys.
You know what I mean?
Gia, were you a head boy as well? Gia behind the camera was a head boy as well.
Right,
look at that, yeah.
Beautiful, yeah. So I think, that's part of, I think, leadership has always been something that I think I've noticed at a young age. And yeah, I guess, that's me, in a nutshell. I don't know, I think for me, it's been a journey. I'm still young, but here we are now.
How young are you? So for the audience, how young are you?
All right, I'm 24. By the way,
24.
24. Yeah, 24.
Just turned 24. Are you December baby?
Oh no, just turned 24. So August baby.
Oh.
So I'm still fresh in the.
Yeah, in the 24 space.
Yeah, in the 24 space. Yeah,
of course. And you mentioned that you pretty much grew up in South Africa.
Yeah.
What were you like in high school?
I was a nerd, eh?
Really?
Unattractive, by the way.
Yeah.
I was weird in the sense that people didn't understand, you know how people look at nerds and like, you're not cool, fashion sense wise, you're not, also I was a bit of an overachiever, not per se academically, but okay, I was a bit academically. But,
no, I mean, you have to be. If you're going to be a head boy, you have to be.
Yeah, but, more in the cultural side as well, in terms of debating, chess, so already that gives you a hindsight of who I was. But I was a very antisocial person, very awkward. I think it's because I can't have short conversations, right? I
Sure.
like
You like
meaningful,
in-depth
conversation.
yeah.
And in high school already, people are just like, why are you going deep, dude? We're just speaking about this.
That's so deep.
Yeah, like, so only now when I start realizing, because people used to say you seem mature for your age, and even you get into university and people are just like, dude, are you sure you're the age you're saying? Yeah. And but also it came with a lot of hard work, so it wasn't easy, like I always mention. I mean, my first job was I was working at Pick and Pay at the age of 15.
Yeah.
Before
you were not legal. You were not legal.
Yeah. I wasn't legal, but that's the tenacity that I had,
Of course.
I was like, you know what, I'm going there. I went to Pick and Pay. I'm like, boom, please, I just need a job for December. And that's how I started. And I think ever since then, you learn certain things that shape you into who you are, and who you become. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think it's so important to have that self-awareness that you've mentioned, to say, look, I don't think I fit in here.
Sure.
And not necessarily in a bad way, but this is not where I need to be deploying energy. And I think it takes a lot of self-awareness and bravery for you to say, look, I'm going to be me, and this is my standard.
Yeah.
And people need to comply to that. Or at least I need to find people that I can be able to exude energy or exchange energy with, and it will be beneficial to myself as well.
Sure.
So
definitely.
Completely understand that. And what I want to move into is, I did mention earlier on that you are Shona, but more importantly, I want to get into your surname, because obviously it's part of the name of the company. Chigwedere, right?
Yes.
What does that mean?
Yeah. So funny enough, I used to hate my surname, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
For the longest time. I think, just to give you perspective, right? People couldn't pronounce my surname. Primary school, even my teacher just wrote Chigwe, because it was just like, So I hated my surname for the longest time, until, when I got to high school, probably around grade 11, when a very attractive girl said, I would marry you for your surname.
Surely, then you got the stem.
I was like,
okay, now.
So it's been a journey of transforming hate to love for the surname, right? But the story of Chigwedere and what it means. So Chigwedere is Shona, and I did my historical fit, with family, and what it means is disruptor.
Sure.
So my forefather, my great-grandfather, was named Chigwedere, and he used to disrupt in the morning. So before people went to hunt, or in the early hours, before the chickens started to, make the noise and stuff, he would cry, and they were like, you are Chigwedere, you are disrupting, you're causing commotion, you're chasing everything. So I think then that's what amalgamated to what Chigwedere is today. Yeah. It means disruptor, and I think this is why people always say, why do you always use your surname in your businesses? And for me, that's what it means, for what I'm trying to build.
Yeah.
First, it looks foreign.
Yeah.
It looks African also. I don't think foreign should be a word, because I'm a Pan-Africanist, so it looks very organic, very African.
Very African.
Very African.
And strong. Yeah.
Exactly. So for me, that was like, okay, Chigwedere, disruptor. And here we are now, trying to we are causing a disruption, actually. We're not even trying, and we haven't scratched the barrel. It's still a long way, especially in the sector that we are operating in. Yeah. But we are unapologetic about it, and we are going to take it further. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'm actually quite. You're bringing me back to a conversation I was watching recently between Penwell and Bishop Maponga.
Okay.
And they were speaking about what it means to be who we are right now, and how we are a culmination of all the people that have come before us. Definitely. We are a representation of them at this present moment in time. your ability to disrupt is merely continuation in your family's lineage of being change makers and being and having that gene to say, look, this is I need to make a change of that, you know. So it's so incredible.
Yeah, I think actually, funny enough, that now that you mention it, you know, there's actually historical books that are written transcripts of. So in Zim we had what we call the Chimurenga, which is the war against the whites. So before colonization came into Zim, there were, you know, African ancestors and fighting against British colonialism.
Sure.
And part of my ancestors actually fought, and British, you know, soldiers used to ride.
Right.
There's documented that Chigwedere's kraal, because we came from royalty, right? Still are.
Yeah.
So we used to fight. So that disruption still is there. Like, you know, I mean, I could always send you a reference. I have the book.
Please do.
You know,
Please do.
It's amazing. Yeah.
It's always an interesting read to just, you know, follow through on African history.
No, definitely.
I don't think we have enough content on it, on genuine African history, not you know, some, you know, little book somewhere, but genuine history that we're able to find identity in and resonate with.
Sure.
But you then recognize that, look, I'm a disruptor. But prior to you starting CPEC or SPEC, surely you would have started another business. You would have disrupted someone. And where would that be? Or what kind of business was that?
So yeah, I think my journey, my first business actually it happened during COVID, right? And it was a manufacturing of corporate wear.
Oh yes.
So primarily, it's still what I do, still my cash cow as well, where we were able to manufacture uniforms, you know, for various companies, SMMEs. So it happened during COVID, and I realized, look, there's no money coming in, right? Because everywhere's shut down.
Yeah.
So we started with doing masks, and our value proposition was embroidering that mask and selling it at cost. So I believe in, you know, mass volume business, because that's where the money is.
And your margins
small.
Become smaller. Yeah.
So for example, would embroider manufacture it, by the way. So I see myself as an industrialist. So I always like going straight to the manufacturing. I don't just believe in buying and then just putting your brand in and that's it. We had a team, you know, we're able to manufacture masks straight and then embroider it. And at that time, we're selling that at like 35 Rand, where masks were going for 90 Rand. Yeah. You know, and this was like quality masks with your company logo on it. Sure. You know, at Mesk. And I'm still making margins, even if it's small. But because for me, I've always seen myself as a visionary. So how do you then create industry? And industry, it's a margin business. It's an economies of scale. I mean, you studied finance. Yeah. So implementing economies of scale, and that's what I did. So that was my first business. And I also had a fintech business, funny enough. Sure. You know, before that, we were developing the app, but you know, COVID changed a lot of things as well, and you know, it took me out. And from there, it then came to Chigwedere Oil and Lubricants. That was how I got into the oil industry, basically. Yeah.
And with the fintech one, is there something you want to Is this you want to do in the future, or you primarily focus on the oil business for now?
Yeah, no, I mean, you know, the banking sector in South Africa, in Africa actually, is very you know, it's not tapped into fully. You know, we have an underbanked economy. You know, especially in emerging markets. I don't even think it's an African thing. It's a emerging market.
Yes,
you know,
you saw southern. What's this? South America.
Yes.
Your
Indonesia.
Asia. Eastern European.
Yeah.
Asian.
Yeah. So, so funny enough, I actually had, and I spoke to another disruptor, the CEO of Time Bank.
Sure.
Kun Jonker.
Yeah.
You know, and we spoke, and they also, you know, doing the same thing that we're doing in a very highly regulated, you know,
industry.
Yeah. So, you know, you start to see that actually there is opportunity. M-Pesa has done it very well in Kenya.
Yes, M-Pesa, you know, and what's this? Mukuru,
yes. In terms of remittances. But if you look at in South Africa, the big banks still hold, a huge market share because they're too big to fail, but also they've mastered the South African banking system very well. So, but it's something I would look to go into at a future date. But obviously at this point it will be once I have the tangible cash, because I like focusing on one thing and putting my all into it to build something with it.
Yeah, because I think especially with the banking field, before we even move on to the rest of the conversation, South African consumers are very loyal. I found that to be quite strange because and even translates to our politics. We're very loyal. Like once we find something, the ability to change and go into a different space, even if there's value there, it's like, listen, I'm not sure about that. So I suppose to a great extent, banks and a lot of industries in themselves that are highly regulated or find themselves with these artificial barriers to entry, really capitalize on that to say, look, they'll come back. They'll boycott. It's fine, but they'll come back. So it's quite an interesting thing to look into, and I think as more people like you come into the space, then we're really going to be able to find alternatives, but find alternatives with value and not just an alternative for the sake of alternative. But I'm really curious to also have a conversation with you about, with all these things that you're doing. Surely there's a moment where you realize that, look, I'm human. Like, surely there's moments where you sit down, you're like, am I going to be able to do that? What do you think carries you through? What are some of your characteristics, or what are some of the things that you feel that you have learned, whether through life experience or just through, emulating someone that you admire and saying, this is a characteristic that I think will take me to the next level?
I think, I always say I'm not a business person or a business owner or an entrepreneur. I think for me, it's been my vision, right? And for me, that vision is then translated to certain principles that are applied. It's not every day you wake up and you're excited because, there's a lot of things, a lot of ops, that comes against you. You look at barriers to entry, you look at, not making turnover, not making money, just also working especially in South Africa, an oligopolist, market. It's difficult, right? But I think for me, being true to my vision has not ever altered, but obviously to have a vision for me, I had to know who I am first. Hence why earlier on we spoke about where does Chigwedere come from, So it became an issue of self-mastery first. Once you know who you are, it's very easy to know where you're going. And once you know where you're going, the vision is there, it's clear, you can be able to go for it because you're not shaken. I'm not I'm not a kite in the wind blowing wherever the wind blows. I'm steadfast in what I do. But for me, it has been an issue of tenacity and resilience. Being able to be resilient, even under the most hardship pressures. Every time I failed, I just came back stronger. So what I mean is, before I came into the petroleum industry, I was in the oil industry, but the very niche segment, where the big players are, but really everyone can do it because you don't need the license. That business failed, and I came back strong, and I was like, okay, I'm going bigger.
Because I saw,
and I was like, now I have a petroleum license, so now we like competing. We have the same license that the oligopolies have, so the same license that Shell, Sasol, Total have. So
we're gonna see a CPEC garage soon.
Definitely, definitely.
No, that's incredible. But I really look, and I found this to be quite. I don't think we do it intentionally, and I do that myself as well, to say, look, just be self-aware. It's like, if I do not, and I think it comes easy, perhaps maybe because of our life experiences, just one of those things where, you've been blessed enough to just have that consciousness to be aware. But how does one become self-aware, or how does one master oneself when they don't know where to even start?
Yeah, it's, there's so when I was in grade 7, I read a book, Out of War, and Sun Tzu, yeah. So this quote was by Lao Tzu, because Sun Tzu was not the only one who actually wrote the Art of War. So he says, mastering others is strength, but mastering yourself is true power.
Sure.
Right? And that's Lao Tzu. So for me, I always boil down, because people always ask me, you seem very grounded and you seem like you know where you are. It's to know where you're going. I'll repeat it. To know where you're going, you need to know where you come from. And when you know where you come from, you'll know who you are. Because I believe that things have a way of repeating themselves, right? You find out that some of the traits that you have were actually
brought down,
through your ancestors or whatnot. It's like genetically there. So
of course.
So for example, if you look at if your people were leaders, like chiefs, tribal chiefs, whatever, there's a high chance that if you look at your career or you look at your life, you're probably going to be a leader somewhere, somehow. I think the Vusi Tembegwayo says it is that the Tembegwayo surname was because they were gods, hence why even now he's still built and big. So it's that. If you look at people, their traits, you start to realize that actually I'm a natural born leader, but because you don't know where you're coming from, then how do you know where you're going?
You get swayed.
Yeah.
Like the kite that you mentioned. Yeah.
Exactly. So once you know that, this is who we are, hence why even till today, you look at the Zulu kingdom, you look at, people, they still have that pride and they become leaders in whatever they do. Yeah. It's the same thing with Patrice Motsepe. His dad was a chief, he was a leader. Now he's a leader today in the business. It doesn't mean that you have to be a tribal leader, but because it's something that was there, he was a long-term vision. It happens, you become a leader in whatever industry that you put yourself into. But I mean, obviously it's a journey. It's not you don't wake up one day and say, okay, I know who I am, and then, it's a constant battle every single day to say, remind yourself, because also it's a curse. Knowing who you are means that, you can't do certain things out of ignorance, because now...
Yes. Now you have the responsibility
to
act in accordance with the knowledge that you have.
Exactly. So now you have to master yourself every day, and that's what life is. Self-mastery, self-improvement, each and every day. That's what I try to do, and that's what has shaped me into becoming the leader or the business person that I am, or the visionary rather. That's the word I would like. Yeah.
Look, we came here to talk about business. But I'm really having a ball with just talking about some of these ideas and concepts, and we will come back to them later on.
Sure.
But I want to speak about something that I didn't know. I mean, when I got the brief that we were going to be speaking to you, obviously I did some research, and I saw Downstream, and I was like, so there's also Upstream. So I'm really curious about, and I'm gonna read off my notes here.
No, definitely.
Downstream value chain of petroleum and energy sector. What does that mean?
Cool. So I think a lot of people don't understand the oil industry. So you look at the news and you're like, oil prices have gone up, have gone down, So essentially what I'll do is I'll break it down into you, so to make it simpler.
Absolutely.
Also for our, viewers as well.
Yeah.
So ultimately, the petroleum industry is broken down into 3 segments. We've got the upstream, midstream, and downstream. So in terms of the upstream, it's essentially your mining of...
Upstream. Okay.
So this is where you have oil rigs, in the ocean, on the ground. So basically it's mining of oil. Yeah. So we're not mining for minerals, but we're mining for black gold, basically, which is the oil. Yeah. So that's where you see the barrels like $89 a barrel.
Per barrel, yeah.
So that's the raw material that we have. So it's called crude oil, right? Mined at upstream. Midstream is where now the transportation, the pipelines that takes the mined goods and takes it to the downstream sector. So midstream is your transportation.
Sure. Distribution,
basically. Yeah. But primarily for the crude oil.
Yeah.
And then you get to downstream now. So downstream then compromises of refining. So the crude oil in itself can't do anything.
Of course,
It needs to go through a refining process.
Yeah.
So the refining process is where it gets heated, distilled, and then it becomes various grades of feedstock or petroleum products.
Sure.
So this is where then, depending on the heat, the residue, everything, you get your petrol, diesel, aviation fuel, jet fuel, paraffin, lubricants, base oils, and that's where downstream is. So it's the end goods getting refined and then brought to the end user. So the garages you see, that's
downstream.
Downstream, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then, so an example of upstream would be what? Is this your upstream? Is Gazprom, Total?
So obviously
not Total. Sorry, Shell.
So basically most of the companies work in all sectors.
Oh, so they cover pretty much the whole value chain.
Yeah, so that's the beauty of it now.
Sure,
so to some extent there are others. So for example, Gazprom usually focuses on upstream. So they discover oil. So this is where the $1 billion upstream, because it's a huge investment, right?
Sure.
So for example, in South Africa, we have close to Mossel Bay, look at Namibia as well.
Yeah.
They've discovered oil.
Is it in the
upstream? Yeah,
in the upstream area.
It's the upstream, yeah. So you find out they invest $10 billion in an oil well. That's so your Shell. So Shell is working well there.
Yeah.
Total Energies as well.
I think they found something, some gas, natural gas in the Northern Cape recently.
Yes. As well as Malanga as well, and then also there's feedstock. But because of other regulatory things in South Africa, you can't just I found gas deposits. I wanna because cracking is fracking actually is sort of like banned. So this is where what they do in the US, where they put they own oil rigs, and then they break the natural environment to get the oil and the gas deposits as well. So there's a lot of regulatory hazards and environment where they just say, look, you can't do certain things, because it's very regulated.
So you're in the downstream element of it. So who are the big players there? Well, I mean, you've mentioned some of them: Total, Shell, BP. I'm assuming.
So in the downstream, if you look at a South African perspective, we've got 5 huge downstream players. So Shell, Total, BP, which is British Petroleum, Engine,
Sasol?
And Sasol as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's downstream, and also Petro SA.
Petro SA.
Yeah. But that's in South Africa, but also in Africa, Shell is huge. Total is actually huge because Total is a French company.
Yes, and I'm assuming
the Francophone regions, then it makes it easier, So big petroleum companies have, a market share all around Africa, and I think the only weird thing is none of them are truly African.
Exactly. I saw a documentary, I think 2 years ago, where in the Niger Delta, these guys were pretty much extracting oil. They were doing pretty much the whole process out in the Delta, and they had they had spoken to the guy who was shooting the documentary to say, how is it that when we do it, it's illegal, yet people come from other countries and they get to do it, but we can do exactly the same thing, right? Fair, it is hazardous, right? I mean, because the fumes, they are incredibly thick, and you can imagine. Yet, at the end of the day, I suppose, and we'll come to this, let's not jump the gun, but to a great extent, I suppose people naturally just want to say, look, if you're going to come here, let's work together, right? And let's make this area beautiful. I mean, we're in Sandton right now. I think all of the businesses that are here have a responsibility and have contributed to making it a world class. What's that expression that they love using? Richest square mile in Africa.
Sure.
So, but before that, this seems like a very capital intensive business. How do you then get into this?
Still very, it's huge. No, I think for me, like as an entrepreneur, right? I never believe in money being a barrier to anything. I think a lot of people want to do business, want to do entrepreneurship, and then it's always the same thing. Like a finance, right? My only issue is access to markets, but it was self-funded by me and my partner, who was part of my team, and we were able to raise capital because remember before we even started we needed to make sure that we get the license. So getting the license in itself is not easy. We had to get professional consulting companies, to formulate a proper strategy, environmental management plan, transport agreements, to how to move the fuel. Because remember, the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy in South Africa has high standards.
Sure.
So you need to make sure that you've got financial projections that are in order. You need to make sure that you are compliant because you're dealing with a very dangerous good. It's like the banking sector. It's very financially regulated.
Of course.
So we self-funded, and we haven't raised financing, but here we are now with the petroleum license and other future exciting stuff that we want to mention that are coming through. Yeah.
How much does it cost to get a petroleum license? And how long? How long and how much?
How much?
They can give me a ballpark if you don't want people to know this is how much I'm sitting on right now.
I mean, just so in terms of money, it's all relative, but I mean, depending on who you work with, right?
Yeah.
In terms of your consulting companies, but we're looking ballpark of 50 and above, just on paperwork. No infrastructure, nothing.
50 million?
No.
Oh.
No.
50,000, okay.
Yeah. But it can go even, bigger than that. So we've spent over 100 just on paperwork, and it takes a while. So I've got people who are like, how did you get the license? Because I've been waiting for about 2 years now, 3 years. There are people who are operating illegally, selling fuel, but, not having the license.
Sure.
And for us, it took us about 9 months. And, even after waiting for 9 months, you can be rejected, right? But in terms of regulatory stuff, I mean, you just pay your license fee, which is 1,000 and then 500 annually as well. So
1,500?
Yeah, just to...
Annually?
Yeah, but this is
This is post, obviously, the drama.
But the drama before that, because not anyone can just have a license.
Sure.
It needs to go through, various regulatory requirements and to see that if you meet the standard, because you need to meet the fuels charts of South Africa. You need to meet, certain things that make sure that you are compliant.
Yeah.
And I think for us, we prioritize compliancy, but also, making sure that we are good at all ends because, we work with a very hazardous...
I mean, we saw the unfortunate, what's this? Incident that happened, I think a year ago, early this year, in Boksburg, where
the explosion.
The explosion, yeah.
Yes. So you can imagine. So now, if you don't have the right partner, because there's various routes when you're delivering, such fuels that you can't choose. And unfortunately, in that case, they went through a bridge that was
too low, and now you have
a gas leakage,
people passing on. Yeah.
Exactly. So all of those things, remember. So now, you need to have insurance for that, so even our transport agreements, we needed to work with a company that was, intact. So we don't compromise on, safety, and it's of the utmost importance, so for my team, but also for our clients as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you started off at 50 and it can go upwards to 100. I'm assuming it can go even further. What exactly makes it go further? Is it the duration? What exactly makes it go further?
So obviously, outside of the legal framework and compliance side of things, you start looking at just getting, because we are bulk sellers, so meaning that we can't retail. So the rules or the regulatory...
What does that mean? Sorry. What does that mean?
So the regulatory framework in South Africa is there's wholesalers and there's retailers. So retailers are the guys you go and buy, you fill up directly. Okay. Then there's wholesalers.
So that's us. Retailers is us.
Yeah. Okay. So retailers and wholesalers are different. So wholesalers are people who can manufacture, but also who distribute in bulk. So we then supply the retailers with the fuel feedstock, right? Okay. So you find out maybe a BP garage or Sasol requires maybe 160,000 liters, for the month. We are able to do that. So our license doesn't allow us to sell anything below 1,500 liters of fuel, any fuel to any client. So you can't come to me and say, hey, give me 10 liters.
10 liters, no.
I
don't have petrol.
No, it's not that. We do bulk. So we supply to the mining, agricultural, power generation, industrial industries, also the aviation industry as well, because we are licensed to operate in all
across
of those.
the board.
Yeah, so our license covers all of that.
That would explain why it takes such a long time, and also the money that comes into it. We need to do proper vetting of the people that are there.
Sure, no, definitely. And also, like just buying 1,000 liters already, that's about, in current price right now, that's about 26,000, just 1,000 liters.
1,000 liters.
It's
Oh yeah, I mean,
because the diesel, maybe for now, diesel is like 24 and 40 in the region that we are in. But if you go to a retailer, it's like 26 rand because they need to make their margins. And you're paying about 26,000 for 1,000 liter. So you can see how capital intensive it is. And then now it's not enough to just have a license; you need to have storage facilities.
Of course, to store it and to maintain it
as well, and to buy more feedstock, because building storage facilities is one thing. Putting in the petrol, buying the petrol itself is another thing, because now we buy directly from the refineries. So you look at in Secunda, you look at Upstream Energy in Cape Town. Also we can be able to import, which is something exciting that we're about to do.
Oh, that's exciting.
So that's how it is.
Look, someone is sitting at home and they're like, look, I don't have 100,000 rand. So where can they start?
It depends on what they want to do, honestly speaking. But it depends on what you want to sell, what you want to do in that industry. Because, like I always tell people, it's one thing having a license. I mean, go to the Department of Energy; they'll tell you, don't be happy that you have the license now. You can have the license and not make any business, because it's an oligopolist business.
Sure.
One, capital intensive. Two, access to markets. Already the big guys have market share, and if it's not the big guys, they've got their own branded distributors already. So, it's already capital intensive. But I mean, if you are intentional about being in this space, there are consulting companies you start with, obviously getting the access to financing, but also then getting in touch with the right, energy consultants that we can do. I mean, we can also help you with that in that aspect, but that's not our business. Our business is to actually move product and to distribute. But I mean, it's not for everyone. It's also a mafia industry, by the way.
Of course, I was actually about to get into that, but
it's actually a mafia.
You beat me into it, because I wanted to speak about what are the tangible barriers to entry. What's exactly going on, because I have an extended acquaintance of mine who owns a garage, and he's like, listen, it's very dangerous. And I'm like, I mean, what's dangerous? So please put some context to it. What exactly is going on?
So the thing is, you have the risk, security of supply. So you have the risk of buying contaminated fuel. So this is diesel that is mixed with paraffin. Intentionally. So paraffin is more cheaper than diesel. So diesel is expensive. So you blend it with, paraffin, so that your margins are lower. So you've got 60% diesel and then 40% paraffin. Then your margins become, you're making 3 rand a liter. Because remember, as much as we use petrol every day, it's a margin business. It's a small margin, huge volumes, right? So if you're not moving volumes, you're not making money, right? So people don't understand that. So everyone thinks, oil. They're thinking of a chic in...
people, I think a lot of times we're thinking about the Middle Eastern guys and Lamborghinis and all these big buildings.
But it's not, in reality, it's not actually like that, especially in the downstream. So in the upstream, that's where you get to see that, because it's capital intensive. So now you're charging in the dollar, right? But the barriers to entry obviously would be then access to finance, access to markets. So meaning that you have the fuel, but who do you sell to? Because not everyone has that kind of capital in hand. So you look at a truck, a huge truck of petrol worth 40,000 liters. That's easily 600K. You know, that's a lot of money.
Just moving down.
Just one, excluding transport costs. So for us, Mafia, it's like once you break through, you tapping into someone's territory.
Yeah.
And now they're like, hey,
you're taking food off their table.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, because now it's a long-term contract. It's not a short-term thing. You know, it's not a you buy once and then it's done. It's an everyday thing. So the risks are the big guys who've been in the industry for a while, then start to see, okay, we'll burn your storage facilities, we would steal your fuel, your fleet. You know, so it's all of those things. So that's why I say it's a very dangerous industry.
Yeah.
It's not all roses. This is why not everyone succeeds in it, and not everyone is in it as well. Yeah.
Yeah. That's you know, it's funny because I don't know if you've watched. There was a documentary. I think it's a 5-part or 4-part documentary.
Yeah.
About the gold mafia.
Mm-hmm.
That was recently aired on Al Jazeera, and some of the things that you're mentioning now. You know, it's similar things. You know, you're looking at guys that have been there and they're like, listen, I'm not gonna. And you're also looking at guys that are also mixing gold with some other, you know, cheaper materials and alloys, and they just. So it's such an interesting thing, you know. I mean, to look into what the reality of it is, but what then gets you to break? What do you think gets you to break that barrier?
Yeah.
Or what are the things that you've noticed that got the other guys to break their barriers that you're trying to break into?
Sure. So I think I always say that any industry that has higher barriers to entry, once you break through, no one can replicate your business model, right? Because it's difficult.
Sure.
So someone else having a license doesn't scare me because
it's like, well,
welcome. Sure.
You don't know the guys that I know.
Yeah, that's
and
like
they don't know you.
Exactly. It's like just because you have a license doesn't mean you can afford to buy a car. You understand? So with that being said, for us, we realize all those barriers to entry, but I think it's all a matter of how do you pivot, you know, how do you find a niche within certain industries, you know. Like I said, we don't sell fuel for everyone. We have certain markets that we sell to, like, you know, the mining, power generation, aviation, as well as the, you know, industry. So you look at how do you capitalize on your capital, and your capital it's not really finance, it could be your network, you know, to say, look, because at the end of the day, it's about reliability.
Yes.
Our clients are looking at us and saying, can you ensure security of supply and quality assurance, right? And we're like, yes, we can. You know, I think at Chigwedere we have 4 pillars, which is security of supply, premium service always. You know, it can be a seller, a reseller, or whatever. Premium service, going the extra mile. My whole team is a technical team, by the way, all under 25.
Yeah. So, and I've read, you guys should go onto their sites. I've read, there's a lot of BENG, engineering, and I'm like, everyone is engineering, you know. I'm actually quite interested to hear how you then get to lead all these guys.
So I'm a finance
major,
So, but look, I mean, you know, it's that having a technical team. So, you know, for us, we partnered with an oil manufacturer as well in terms of oil and lubricants, where we can be actually able to manufacture any oil in real time.
Sure.
So if a company says to us, we need X amount, we need 10,000 liters, we're not waiting for, you know, storage or imports, or, you know, we've got it in real time. We manufacture in real time. You know, in 48 hours, we've got that capacity to manufacture. You know, so it's that. If a client says to us, look, we have this oil, can you manufacture this oil? We take the sample because we've got an in-house tribologist. We manufacture it according to the specifications of our clients. So for us, it's, you know, that's part of us being disruptive, is, you know, looking at what we offer, but not saying, look, it's not what we offer, what do you guys need?
Yes.
You understand?
Yes. And can we be agile enough
to do that? I mean, I think that's nice about us, is that we're also a small team, so we're able to move around quickly. You know, as much as we are growing, we are able to do that. So it's all of that security of supply, ensuring that also quality assurance, very important. The machinery is adequate enough, and also, operations shouldn't stop because you guys are waiting for the CFO and he's only going to authorize month end. So we have payment solutions, competitive price. So we offer premium service, premium quality, but at competitive pricing, very affordable compared to the bigger guys because they've got market share, so they control pricing anyway. But because we own how to manufacture it, we are able to do that as well. Yeah. So which is nice for us. So that's how we then are breaking those barriers to entry. So I think for us then it's just using our network capital, but also directly speaking to buyers in the mines and saying, look, what are your pain points and how can you do to make it better so that your operations, your fleet doesn't have to stop? You understand? When your client is happy, your business strives because then our vision as a company is to fuel and lubricate each and every engine that contributes to the industrialization of Africa.
Yeah.
Industrialization of Africa means that there's more employment opportunities for young black people.
Yes.
In Africa, the youth unemployment in South Africa is huge. So if we can be able to fuel and lubricate that, it then trickles down to
yes.
Other sectors and ultimately a better Africa as a whole.
And we become more competitive.
No, as well, definitely.
Having utilized our own resources, which is what's important.
Yeah.
And thus far, are you able to share with us some of the biggest not movement, but the biggest deal you've done thus far?
So currently right now, we're working with a UAE company, and we are going to be importing petroleum products.
So you're moving.
Yeah, no,
You're moving midstream now. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So because I believe in controlling the value chain,
of course.
Right? So for us, like I said, we're trying to be our own Shell, our own Total,
yes.
as an African company. Hence Chigwedere, Disruptors. So that's part of it. But one thing that we are doing now is we're actually undertaking a huge project, 27 mil.
Okay.
27 million. So nothing too big. It's a million, 1.4 million USD. So
sure.
Still small scale for us.
Yeah.
I think in dollars, by the way.
Yeah, no, of course, as you should. You're pushing a dollar-based product.
Sure, definitely.
Yeah.
So we're building storage facilities. We currently have done phase 2 of our project. And right now we're just raising that financing, and we are very confident within the first quarter of next year we'll be starting construction as well. So that's part of things that I haven't told to the world. Exclusively.
You're getting an exclusive, a scattered exclusive.
yeah, exclusive. But so some things I can't really speak about, due to NDA and stuff. But we have various interested parties. But for us right now, we're doing it as a young black-owned energy company, petroleum company, to say this is what we are going to be doing, and we are building that. Yeah.
That's incredible, and I think we'd be very excited to have you again, next year, and really just speaking about that and the progress that you guys have made.
Sure.
But I have a question, and I think it's, as you've mentioned, UAE. I have a question that is very much centered around oil markets, but also just genuine curiosity.
Yeah.
We have Brent, crude oil.
Sure.
We also have WTI. What is the difference exactly?
Sure. So, Brent crude oil essentially is the crude oil that you mine in the upstream in the northern seas. So you look in Europe, so it's like a benchmark basically for all the oil prices. So you look at Nigeria, Angola, those are oil-rich countries, but they don't make Brent, right? They make, they've got their own grades of oil. So there's different grades of oil.
So Brent is a grade?
It's a grade as well, but it's a benchmark for global oil prices.
Sure.
Right? So then WTI is West Texas intermediary, if I'm not mistaken,
Yeah.
So that's what it means. So it's done in the US.
Okay.
So that's what they use as a benchmark.
As their benchmark.
Yeah, because USA is also part of the biggest oil producers in the
it?
world. Yeah, no, they're one of the biggest, and one of the biggest consumers, after China as well. So yeah.
Oh, so basically the difference here we're looking at is a geographical thing.
Geographical thing,
Yeah.
and also the benchmark of what sets the price. So within the Americas, WTI then would be, but on a global standard, Brent crude is what everyone uses because it's predominantly what oil that is being produced within.
So a lot of the OPEC countries pretty much use that.
Yeah, as a benchmark, and that sets down then the tone for the fuel price. So you look at how our fuel price is structured. It's based on, crude oil.
Yes.
Based on, the USD exchange rate. So that's why sometimes if we have a bad month,
and I'm glad you're here
Yeah.
because I need you to explain to me why is it that we are at the mercy of these price movements, and yet sometimes, I mean, there was a point in time when WTI went to negative. I think during COVID.
During COVID, yes.
Right, and Brent, I think the lowest it went was $40 per barrel or 20. I'm not sure. I can't really remember. So don't quote me on that one. But I do remember WTI.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, then now we need to, I don't know, store more. We need to buy more. And so what exactly is contributing to the price that I get to see at my local CISI down the road from me?
So obviously we work in a regulated environment.
Yeah.
So predominantly the government sets price.
Okay.
For petrol, by the way.
Oh, so it's not market players. It's not.
So market players, but at the end of the day, government then sets a basic price to say this is the
threshold.
This is the threshold.
Yeah.
So if you go to any retail, petrol is the same everywhere, right?
Sure.
Same price because it's set by the DMRE, and through the oil company's strategic energy fund. Yeah. So CEF, Central Energy Fund, yes. So essentially what we have international pressures. So if Brent crude goes up, it's denominated in dollars.
Of course.
And if we have a bad month in South Africa in terms of currency-wise,
then it becomes much more expensive.
Much more expensive, but also a bulk portion of how much you're paying at the retailers or at the service station is actually made up of your road accident fund. So those are the taxes, your fuel levy. So the people who are blowing ref money, it's coming from each and every one who pays for.
I'm sorry.
It's all government policies. So this is why people but why is petrol cheaper in Botswana than in South Africa when they buy from us? Doesn't make sense, but it's because of that. There's a lot of taxes that they make that. And then also we have a standardized margin for us as sellers, you understand? And that's where it then comes into it. And then at the end of the day, makes up the price that you pay. So if market goes bad, crude oil goes up, dollar as well is stronger than the rand.
Appreciates, yes, because the demand has to go up to need dollars to buy oil.
Yeah, and then ultimately affects everything, and then it affects the price for what you pay every month. So every month, for example, every Wednesday of the new month, there's a new price set based on how the rand and how oil prices
performed the
previous month.
So the price is lagging.
Yes.
Basically, because now it needs information from the past to
yes, that's how it works.
If you are providing energy, right?
Yeah.
At a competitive price, and look, I'm no expert, but it sounds like you're providing it cheaper than a lot of the big guys.
Sure.
And then why do we? And you're providing it to power stations, and why is electricity then expensive? What exactly is going wrong?
So you look at currently right now, energy, it's when it comes to electricity, it's a different ball game on its own.
Okay.
But you look at currently right now during load shedding, they use a lot of diesel. Eskom is one of the biggest diesel or petroleum products user, and they're the biggest client for Petro SA, which is a state-owned company, right?
Okay.
And primarily that is because we've got we have open cycle gas turbines So these are power stations that don't use coal as feedstock or gas as feedstock, they use diesel, right? So now, if the price of diesel goes up, ultimately then it will affect,
Yes.
the costs. So coal is the cheapest, hence why we use coal. And so there's a lot of tariffs as well, because remember there's NERSA, the National Energy Regulatory of South Africa, that controls the tariffs and the pricing.
Yes, they decide.
They decide, and then obviously then it boils down to your municipality, because Eskom sells power to City of Johannesburg, and then City of Johannesburg
has to put a markup on that.
Yeah, and sells it to you as well. But then obviously everything is controlled, so you can't go above a certain point, because it's things that everyday people need. So even at diesel and petrol, there's sort of like a threshold. Even LPG gas,
yes,
there's a threshold. So you can't go
above this.
Yes.
So so there's, what I'm hearing is there's a lot of what's this? It's this government intervention in the industry.
Yes.
And what's this? I forgot. There's an economist who speaks about that, who doesn't like it actually. Is it Keynes? I think it's Keynes who speaks about. Again, don't quote me. Having the invisible hand but anyway, I'm waffling right now. But that's besides the point. So, what I think is important now is, do you think if we are to reduce the government's hand, would have a much more competitive market, or it could actually go really bad for the consumer?
Yeah. So I think government needs to play a role.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at oil price, petrol price everywhere, it's usually government, controlled. So there's that regulatory that needs to be there. I think they do a decent play on it. So if we're to leave it to markets, it'll be tricky. I mean, even in a regulatory environment like South Africa, where we operate in currently, it's all we need to do is the taxes remain fixed, right? They don't change, but it's then finding cheaper alternative or cheaper cost of the basic fuel price. So the basic fuel price is the petroleum product without none of the taxes, just
straight from
the source.
Yes.
So it could be from the Middle East, or it could even be from the refineries here in South Africa, even though most of them have closed down, because all of them now are importing. We still have Sasol and Secunda, and as well as Estron Energy, where they've revived. But you look at Sapref, which is the biggest refinery we have in South Africa, and it stopped operations.
Why is that?
Because
do you know?
So it's a legacy thing. Remember, these were built in the 1950s. These refineries were built in the 1950s. So they get to a point where they start, losing value. And also, they're still making old grade of fuel. So in terms of, we have new specifications that are coming from the government that says you need to make a standard grade because of cleaner fuels, right? We're transitioning.
So we're looking at carbon emissions and things like that.
Yes. Yeah. So we're going from 50 ppm. Went from 500 to 50. So 50 ppm is like one of the cleanest fuels. 10 ppm is one of the best fuels.
Sure.
Cleaner, and Sasol is the only one that's doing that now.
10 ppm.
10 ppm.
Okay.
Yeah. But
what is ppms?
It's parts per. So it's like a grading basically of how much carbon emission is in the fuel.
Yeah.
So the lesser it is, the better, but the more expensive because it needs to go through another refining process. So now we have legacy infrastructures, refineries that are sort of like, in order to do that, you need to transform them, you need to upgrade them, and it's expensive to upgrade. It's not a 100 million rand investment.
It's billions.
It's billions. So getting that infrastructure in place. So most of them now have become import terminals and storage facilities where they import, which is cheaper because already you can buy it from maybe Angola, Nigeria, and then you import it into South Africa, and then from there it's already cheaper because they've taken the burden of, the refinery operational expenses, and also with petrol and electricity, expensive power cards, it doesn't make sense. It's not feasible as well to do that, to run those operations. But then it affects the thousands of people that are employed by that industry or by that refinery. So if you look at what Gwede Mandashe is saying, is that let's revive,
this industry.
Yeah, let's revive the refineries. He wants to build a new refinery in Richards Bay. I'm not privy to speak about it because I'm not sure if it's still in the works, but they want to revive Sapref and buy it from BP and Shell because they are the custodians of that refinery.
Yeah. And sell it to CPF.
To SEF, yeah, so it'll be a state-owned entity. Yeah.
So, earlier on you spoke about what you think the impact of your company selling fuel at a competitive price looks like for the African, market and for, job creation.
Yeah.
Look, it's no secret across Africa there's conflict, consistent conflict, and at the core of everything we're looking at natural resources in some shape or form.
Sure.
Right? In Congo we're looking at a lot of diamonds, cobalt, and all these other natural resources that are at play. Recently, I'm not even sure if it stopped, but we also had fighting in Cabo Delgado in Mozambique. And funny enough is where Total is trying to extract what's this gas? I believe it's natural gas.
Yes.
What do you think? How do you think a responsible and caring energy company looks like in Africa?
Yes, I think obviously it's a company that raises enough capital to come into a specific community and outside of profits reinvests in that specific community and doing that so responsibly. So there should be succession planning into where we discover certain petroleum products or oil in that sense. So if you look at that, I think for us as a company as well, I come back to say for us is building a storage facility of that gravity. It's not a huge. We have about 400,000 liters of feedstock that we store, but it's to say, how do we then have local young people beneficiating from that? So it's a matter of impact. Outside of profits, impact. How do you impact the community? How do you reinvest some of your profits, some of your funds into your employees first, in terms of uplifting them in terms of skills? So, for example, we're increasing our capacity to 10 new people, historically disadvantaged, groups new to fields industry. So it's being able to increase capacity. Once we increase capacity, impact as well. Investing in the local community as well as a whole and getting it there. So I think for us that's what's important.
Yeah. I read recently that there's about, if I'm not mistaken, let me check my notes, 800 trillion cubic feet, right, of natural gas in Africa.
Sure.
And BP is predicting that we will expand by 80% by 2035, right? So that means that we're looking at an emergence in GDPs and pretty much middle class. That's practically, in my view, is slowly dying in South Africa.
Yes.
How do you think as young Africans, and this is the final question, how do you think as young Africans we can position ourselves to utilize and benefit from the natural resources that we have, and that we are privy to, having in abundance, within the African continent? How do you think we can benefit from that, and how do you think we can continue to benefit from that?
Yeah, no, look, I mean, for us, I think this is part of our strategy as a company, right? Is we did our feasibility, and in the next 10 to 20 years, we're going to be using more oil than we currently are. So looking at Africa, you look at, there was a report by the African Energy Chamber, that specifically said that we have one of the biggest reserves of gas in Africa, and it's just a matter of now you have the West telling you we need to go renewable,
Yes.
and we need to transition. And we believe, look, Africa is only a polluter about 3 to 4% globally.
Of global, yeah.
Yeah. In South Africa, the biggest polluters are CISI and Eskom.
Yeah.
So, but also at a global level, 4% is Africa as a whole.
As a continent, opposed to, yeah.
That's, so we're looking at natural gas being a transition fuel for the future. And this is where Africa comes in. We've got the natural gas reserves. The West, China is looking at natural gas. They use more natural gas, hence why there's the topic of LNG, moving natural gas into Europe. You saw when the Russia-Ukraine war occurred.
They used it very well
Yeah.
as a weapon.
So they tried to sanction and said they were getting natural gas from Russia. I mean, they still are a bit, but I mean, natural gas then was a deficit in Europe because it's very cold, and natural gas for them is huge.
Yes.
And remember it's used for power generation.
Of course, yes.
It's used, in homes,
the same way
industry.
we have electricity. They have gas, yes.
So in that sense, then it puts Africa in a good position to say, look, we've got the feedstock, let us invest in these natural gas resources that we have, because clearly there is a demand for it, you understand? And already, when you look at that, then it trickles down to say, you put investments, because remember, when you're extracting natural gas, it's a huge investment. You're speaking $10 billion, in the upstream. $10 billion, you've got people in those communities who can benefit from that. We're looking at pipeline development. This is the industrialization that we're speaking about.
Yeah.
Pipeline development, building of, factories, industries, local consumption, because now it's cheaper because you're extracting it directly here. Now we can export, export our natural resources and sell it and make huge margins because, now you have long-term contracts. So natural gas contracts are not, we buy today and we're done. We sign 20-year deals, So that is that. Even in South Africa here, Petro SA has their own refinery, close to Mossel Bay, and that refinery is actually natural gas refinery, meaning that they turn this natural gas into fuel feedstock, you understand, which is your petrol, diesel, but from natural gas.
Yeah.
But now because of they've exhausted the natural resources there in terms of natural gas, now it's not operational as it used to be. Yes. So here's opportunity now. Brupalda, which is also within the region of South Africa, towards the coast around there, also has huge amounts of natural gas.
Yeah.
It can beneficiate the communities, the towns in that situation. You look at in Africa, it trickles down. This is now you employ more people. Communities are benefiting.
Skill sets. Because what you're mentioning right now is a lot of skill sets that can come into play.
No, definitely.
Allow people to position themselves in a way in which we can benefit from this.
Sure. No, definitely. So, and I mean, if you have more people who are then earning, even economy-wise, the GDP increases. You look at purchasing power and spending power increases. There's a market for it. But what we need is investment. Because remember now, the only thing we're lacking is the investment and the regulatory framework. So you look at South Africa, it's taken a while for gas developments to be approved. They need to take about 10 years, 5 years. In Namibia, they discovered it takes the process of applying to be able to extract is about, less than a year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So compared to South Africa, you need to wait 5 years. It's not tangible for any investor to say, am I willing to wait 10 years, and it might even be rejected, 5 years, 10 years, to be approved to have my license to actually go into the upstream and extract natural gas. You're investing $10 billion of that, but for us, I think as Africa, this is where we are positioned now. We have what the rest of the world needs. China needs this, Europe needs this. Let's capitalize on this opportunity, because already now we are industrializing. We are using our natural resources, to actually beneficiate the rest of Africa, and increase our GDP, hence why the Middle East, they discovered oil, UAE discovered oil. They've got their own national oil company, the Abu Dhabi National Oil Company.
Yeah. And you have Saudi Aramco.
Saudi Aramco as well. They use that. Those are national companies that they're using to better, the economy. You understand? Because that is their cash cow as a country.
Yeah.
It's a state-owned entity, but they've run it well as a private entity. And look at now, the Middle East is rich. It's developed. Look at Dubai. Look at Abu Dhabi.
Yeah.
50, 30 years ago, it was a fishing town.
Yeah.
Look at now, they've used oil money. And this is raw oil money, so raw materials, the actual crude oil, sold it to America, to British Petroleum, and from there they were able to make money because it's huge investments. So if you can do the same for Africa, where would Africa be?
So I just want to say thank you so much for the opportunity to sit down with you. You really shared a lot, and it only makes sense that as you progress into the next phase of your business, we come back and we give the people another view and another perspective, what it means to open an office in the UAE or London. So I'm really grateful.
Hopefully, so we are planning on opening an office in Abu Dhabi, so maybe next time you'll be in Abu Dhabi.
Exactly, you'll fly us out, Habibi. But in any case, thank you so much for tuning in, and we're looking forward to getting your comments. Please like, share, subscribe, and give it a thumbs up if you really like the content that we have. Thank you so much.